Like, try for permission, Wanya. Good day. Welcome to my channel on mediation and related topics. Today I have a very special guest with me, Dr. Erika Hitge, to discuss the topic of cyberbullying. Welcome, Erika.
Thank you very much, Anna. It's such a pleasure to speak to you.
Erika, please tell the viewers a little bit more about yourself.
Anna, I've done my BA Honours in Psychology and followed that up with a master's degree in play therapy. My focus at the time when I did the master's degree was to work with children and to work with families. But life has happened, and consequently I've done a PhD in psychology. So I do a whole lot of individual work with people with life problems. I do a whole lot of family and divorce work, do a whole lot of work with children with all sorts of problems they encounter. And then I also do scholastic assessment if there are school problems for children.
Erika, what is cyberbullying?
Anne, I think I'll start off by saying cyberbullying is a very, very specific type of bullying. It's different from physical bullying because then it's not cyberbullying. It definitely includes types of verbal bullying in terms of as much as you don't speak to a person directly, you do speak to them on the internet or on social media. It includes telling other children not to be friends with someone. It includes spreading rumors. It includes causing embarrassment for somebody in the social media. So the whole point is that it consistently happens. It's an aggressive act. It's meant to hurt the person who it is done against, and it's never once off. Also, there's an imbalance of power. So the person who bullies feels in control, and the other person feels as though they've been put down and don't know what to do about it. It's important to know that bullying is never random. It's only bullying if it is abusive, and therefore it is not cyberbullying if somebody tells you that they don't like you, or if they are being bossy, or if they tell a joke about you once. If they consistently do that, then we are dealing with bullying. And if somebody arguments with you, it doesn't comprise bullying. It is just an argument. So it's also important to teach our children those skills so that they know when are they dealing with bullying and when not. And cyberbullying is also called PvPing. And the whole point is it's unwanted. There's this power imbalance. Often the cyberbully has anonymity. The problem or the bullying is it hurts a child so much who's the victim, because there's often a widespread audience. We have to consider that there's the permanence of the cyberspace. So even if the person who has been bullied deletes messages, it's still out there in cyberspace. And so many people have access to technology on Facebook, on Instagram, on Snapchat, on Twitter, SMS, you name it. So it's through all of those media that a person can be bullied.
Erika, we see all these movies, especially the Americans and all of that, and sometimes parents tend to think that this is not happening in South Africa. What do
It
you?
feels very safe. It feels very safe to say it's in America, but the fact is that it is local, it is here, and I would think that very few people who have an adolescent child would not have had an experience of a child saying, yeah, somebody sent me something unbelievably nasty, or here's a consistent pattern of receiving these nasty social media, this nasty SMSs or WhatsApps or through whatever medium it is called, it is happening. And I think we've got to consider, we've got to know that cyberbullying happens the least in the middle grades. Mostly kids, I would imagine that not many kids in the grade 1s and 2s and 3s probably need a cell phone so much. But I think that from grade 4, children often have cell phones, but it's less so than for children who go to high school. And the cyberbullying is greater in the last 3 years of high school, the grade 10, 11, and 12. It has the highest impact as well. So those are the children who are mostly being bullied. And the impact on those children are seen in the practices where psychologists and counselors and other people who work with adolescents operate. And we are very familiar, schools too are very familiar with the kinds of bullying that occurs. And that is why many schools offer or actually make sure that they have policies against bullying. And very often they have practitioners who can assist if bullying has taken place there. But yes, it's rife in South Africa. It is here. It's here to stay. So we probably have to more and more equip our children that they are able to deal with social bullying and to prevent cyberbullying.
Erika, why do people bully?
Such an interesting thing, you know. I think the easiest answer, and the one that I hear that parents often share with their children, is feel sorry for the bully, because this bully must come from circumstances that are dire, and that's why this person feels the need to lash out on other people. But it is also a fact that bullies can be people who have never been bullied, and who themselves may have high self-esteem and can be social climbers. It can be people who's just never learned the skill of not bullying, of not knowing that how much they inflict hurt on another person. So what is true, though, is that bullies sometimes come from backgrounds where there is insecurity, where there may be a lack of parental involvement, where there may be inconsistent parenting, where there may be a lot of physical punishment and emotional outbursts. Some of these things we find in the background of children who bully. And then it's very important that if we realize that a person bullies, that we should be able to look after the bully as well, because otherwise the bullying patterns can just shift from one child who's being bullied to a next and a next child who's being bullied. So I think we could never just look after the victim, but we also should look at the bully to stop the behavior.
Erika, how often does cyberbullying progress to physical bullying?
It depends on the circumstances, Anne. I think we've seen in the media over the past few years instances where people who cyberbully also, where it extends to physical bullying. Look, where children are together in a school and where they have access to each other, there is a great possibility. And if you have been cyberbullying a person, there's nothing that stops you from bullying a person on the school grounds. So be it physical, be it verbal, be it social, all of those types of bullying can occur in an in-person encounter. But very often the cyberbully is somebody who enjoys the anonymity of the cyberspace, and they don't necessarily want to be confronted with the victim. They aren't necessarily very brave. And then, yeah, it's about if they are really, really a super bully, they would extend the cyberbullying towards physical bullying of a person, where that would extend to a school or another social environment. And I can't give you a statistic. Unfortunately, I don't know that such statistics are available. But in practice and in my knowledge of bullying, I have definitely encountered that this happens. So we can never minimize the impact of cyberbullying and say nothing more will happen, don't worry, because it could. And therefore, we need to help children and especially adolescents as much as possible to stop the cyberbullying and help them so that it doesn't extend to a further type of bullying.
As a parent, what signs can you look out for to determine whether your child is being bullied or not?
The most apparent one is if children find excuses to avoid going to school, and that they play sick and they are sick too many times. If you take them to the doctor, there's no diagnosable illness, and the point is that they want to avoid going to school because they might be in the physical company of people who cyberbully them, and they may also be in a company where nobody is in actual fact talking, but everybody is on social media, and a bullying conversation is happening to them where they are also physically present. So there's an avoidance of school very often. When this has hurt a child's self-esteem and it's been going on for a long time, we would find that children hurt themselves with cutting, they might burn themselves, or they might apply eating restrictions. There's a lot of bullying going around in terms of being too fat or eating the wrong things, and that is where that comes from. Children might also lose their interest in their friends or extracurricular activities, and that's almost a sign of some level of depression occurring because they feel helpless and they feel hopeless, which are also typical signs of depression. They might appear moody, they might seem anxious or depressed, might seem helpless or withdrawn, and then but almost always there's low levels of self-esteem because they are hurt. They are hurt through the bullying, and therefore their self-esteem is not what it was before. You might also find that they have difficulty in trusting others, and they might become aggressive and angry, and that may just be their way of expressing the difficulty that they have, and not necessarily a bad relationship with their parent or any other person, but it's like they just cannot contain the feelings anymore, and then they might show you some levels of aggression. I think those are some of the most apparent things that happen. But we also see that when the victims come out, if they should speak to somebody about cyberbullying, there's a lot of shame involved, because if somebody was calling you fat or ugly or dark or whatever ugly things people could have to say about another person, it is difficult to utter those words again. So it creates shame. There can even be sleep disturbances. Not only can some children stop eating or eat less, but they can also eat more as a coping mechanism. You could even see bedwetting in children who have long not, been doing that, a kind of behavior that you wouldn't expect. They could actually physically feel sick as well, have stomach aches from the anxiety, and headaches, muscle aches, and so forth. And the dead giveaway is always when there is not a medical cause. A doctor can't confirm that there is any illness. So I think those are the things parents should look out for.
Erika, obviously we can't cut out cell phones completely. How do we as parents address this issue with our children without them becoming rebellious and just shutting down?
I think if we want to start guiding our children when they are adolescents, that is when our problems start. So it's so important for parents to parent from the start, to build in clear boundaries for their children with consequences. But when your child is already an adolescent, it's important to have an open door policy with them, to have an open mind in as far as communication with your adolescent child is involved, so that they can speak to you at any point if there is a problem, and they shouldn't fear that you will scream and shout and not be able to hear them. And I know that adolescents can really, really challenge parents. But whilst this is true, it must also be true that you are able um, to regulate your own behavior in such a way that you know when your child needs to speak to you, and that you don't create hurdles in the way of that kind of open communication. I think right from the start, you must provide a clear guidance for your child about acceptable behavior on social media. Let them know that it's not okay to be bullied, and it's not okay to bully. Teach them that the bullies should be held accountable, but it can't happen if they don't tell somebody. Help them understand how to put their phones to best use, what wonderful things you can do without getting into trouble, how not to take photos of yourself in the nude and fear that somebody might distribute that without your knowledge. Because if you didn't have the self-discipline to make a photo of yourself in the nude, or anything that puts you in a difficult situation, if you didn't have the self-control to not distribute that, why would anybody else then have the discipline not to distribute that? Help your children, remind them. Sometimes as they grow older, they develop a new set of rules for themselves. Remind them of basic human rules, of being kind, of not doing to others what you don't want to be done to yourself. Those are some of the things. Help them understand that it's much better to keep them busy with their phone doing research for assignments than doing things where they might get punished, or where they might become the victim of something that is unpleasant. So I think those are just some of the guidelines that one can use.
Erika, if your child comes to you and they build up the courage to talk to you as a parent or a teacher and inform you about this situation of being cyberbullied, what can you in that authoritative position do to assist that child and to, facilitate the situation?
I think you first of all tell them thank you for coming to speak to you, and that encourages them to, if something happens again, to do that. So you've got to stay calm when your children come to you with difficult matters. I think it's extremely important that you continue to say, be careful who you give your personal information to. If you see anybody else being bullied, tell someone. Say to them, don't respond to the bully, because if you respond and you're upset, that's exactly what the bully wants. You play into the bully's hand. Don't retaliate, because the bully will just go one level higher and do something even uglier. So don't retaliate. Try and block the bully rather than trying to retaliate, because if you retaliate, you are bullying as much as the other person is retaliating. Sometimes cyberbullying becomes such a big problem that you've actually got to call in the police to assist a child, and then it becomes necessary that a child should have saved the evidence. So it's important, if they know a person who is cyberbullying them, that they keep the detail, and so that they can report it appropriately. I think at all times, keep an open mind. Remind yourself that you were also a teenager as a parent. Consider how you would have done it differently. Consider even if as an adult you've been bullied, and how you deal with that. So having a phone just exposes your child immediately. Work with your child, speak to them and ask them what they need, how you can assist them. Help them understand what the bully is trying to achieve. Help them not to look for the cause of the bullying in themselves, finding fault with themselves. Try and involve them in therapy if you can't appropriately address the feelings and perhaps the inadequacy or the hurt that comes through the cyberbullying, and help them as a parent to express their feelings. You might be able to find a support group if you let your child join therapy. Help them to link up with friends that they have been friends with who will be supportive and who have not been bullying, so that they continue to have peers around them. Because for an adolescent person, that individuation, that independence, and that being part of a group of peers is particularly important. And none of them want to be isolated. And that's a strong reason why they get bullied, because very often they don't report bullying out of fear of losing a friendship. And it's important to say to your child, somebody who bullies you have never been your friend. So you are in actual fact not losing anything whatsoever. And you may have been gaslighted for quite a while to believe that you are dependent on that relationship where you are being bullied. So I think it's extremely important to step up as a parent, to take adult responsibility. When you equip your child with a cell phone, know that things can happen and that they might need your support.
Erika, if the child is too scared to go to his parents or teacher and perhaps decides to call Childline, what can they expect when they deal with those therapists?
They can expect a well-trained person. They will never have an untrained person. So it's mostly social workers, registered counselors, and trained parapsychological counselors, maybe not with a 3-year degree, but well-trained in telephone counseling with children. Those people will offer an empathic ear. They will listen to the child. They'll help the child to unpack the emotions that goes along with the bullying. You will not see that there are no emotions, because if there's no emotions, there's been no bullying, because nobody is hurt if there's no emotions. So the counselor will assist the child to deal with those emotions the best way possible. Sometimes it is just about talking and telling and letting somebody else hear and normalize it for you, that how you are feeling is exactly how anybody else would be feeling under those same circumstances. So you've got an empathic ear, but those counselors are also trained to go one step further. If there needs to be a referral, they will refer to private practice, or they will refer to the police service if necessary. I think it's important to know that those counselors have a confidentiality code that they subscribe to. So unless there's a threat of suicide or a threat of destruction of property, or really seriously injuring another person, that child can feel secure, that you can tell whatever you need and that it will stay between yourself and that particular counselor. Those counselors also have support from people who are more experienced and who are their supervisors. So the client will be anonymous and will then be discussed between a supervisor and a telephone counselor if necessary, so that if a counselor felt they couldn't address the problem as much as they would have liked to, they can always still contact the child again and advise further or consult further. And it's also important for me, and I believe that this is exactly how the Childline counselors work, is that they also try and problem solve. How do we, now that you've told me what this is about, now that you have cried, or now that you've told me your feelings and we've explored it and you feel a bit better, how can we best handle this? How can I assist you? And to help the child to help themselves as good as possible in future as relates to cyberbullying. It's actual fact such a good service that very often children phone back and they continue talks in other directions, that it is about school friends, that it's about parents or family members or pending divorce between parents or whatever. So I think those counselors are specifically trained to deal with children and children's matters. And I would strongly, strongly recommend that children can contact Childline, and parents can actually contact Childline alike if it is about child matters, and they will support you. So, and they are a very good support. I recommend their services.
Yes, and it's obviously free because it's a 0800 number, so they can just phone it free of charge. Erika, in situations where they will refer the children, are those services also for free, or how does it work?
Look, Childline has a network of services with other providers who may be NGOs, who may be private practitioners who do pro bono or for free services. It may be practitioners who are in private practice and who have a lesser fee. So they will link the need of the client to somebody in their resource list. But they have many, many, many resources to link people to what is necessary in the best way possible. Also, I think I should mention this, is that if a child definitely needs to have an in-person visit with a counselor or social worker, a clinical visit, a Childline actually makes those appointments and makes themselves available for a child to come and see a practitioner there as well. So it does extend beyond the phone, the phone counselling.
Thank you, Erika. On a last point, can you just give a small pointers as to what your ideas are on the topic and how you would basically guide children as in a preventative measure to avoid situations like this, being in a situation where you fall victim to a cyberbully?
I would say to children, you're a worthy person, and you are of no less value than any other person. So the minute somebody treats you badly, eliminate that person, because chances are that the behavior will increase rather than decrease. So unless you can speak to a person and there's a commitment to not continue with bullying behavior towards you, avoid that person. Or you might have a tendency to allow people to bully you as you go into into adulthood. So it's an important thing to know that children should also be able to set boundaries and to insist on being treated kindly if they are kind to others, of not being humiliated, of not being excluded, of not being made a fool of, because you are a worthy person. But don't be stupid. Don't give your personal particulars to strangers on social media. Don't be too risk. If you don't want to burn, don't play with fire. So consider what you put on social media. Consider how other people will read that, because that's also a sign of an emotionally intelligent person. And I know you are growing, children. You are still growing and you're learning, but don't let it be at your own expense. Try and think before you act, and that's particularly important. Parents under 18 years, your child is still a child and need your guidance. And as much as you would give them recommendations about how many kilojoules to consume, how loud to put on their music so you don't turn deaf, how much money to spend, how much time to spend with their friends, how much time to study, it is as important, if they have a cell phone, to guide them in terms of the use thereof. But do not be such a police person that your child doesn't feel free to have open communication with you about what is happening in their life on social media. They should never be embarrassed. And so it's extremely important that you are able to receive what your child brings to you, and that you can therefore have sensible discussions and guide them. If you don't have that, your child will seek their guidance from other children who know even less than them, and that becomes their guidance. So it helps them in no way whatsoever. So I think from the time that your children are little, show through your own cell phone behavior, through your own limits, through your own amount of time that you spend on social media, the photos that you place, the conversations that you have, the swear words that you have or don't have. Not trying to be ugly, but showing those human strengths of love and kindness and compassion, of a eagerness to learn, of a curiosity about beautiful things, engaging in beauty instead of creating situations where people are embarrassed and so on. So I think all in all, from the time your children are young, have great communication with them, have good communication channels, and a phone is like every other part of your child's life. Help them create boundaries. It won't help when they are adolescents to try and enforce it. So there must be a lifelong process of communication so that you are credible to your child, and so that when you want to enter into communication about a cell phone, it's as credible as when you enter into a conversation about religion or the clothes they wear or the music that they listen to or anything else. And I think I want to say to parents it's a difficult job, and I continue to know that no, they were not issued with guidelines, these children of ours, and don't feel ashamed to ask for assistance. Don't feel ashamed to ask around and to get the most valuable information that you can.
Erika, if people want to get in contact with you for a consultation, how can they go about that?
They can contact me at 082 366 3374, or they can book an appointment on my go and have a look on my platform at drerikahitge.com, where they can actually also book an appointment.
Thank you very much for your time, Erika. This was really enlightening to us as parents. And I would really like, looking forward to having another discussion with you at a later stage on also another interesting topic.
It's been a pleasure, Anne. All the best.
Thank you, Erika.